For me, 13 was definitely a defining year. I got bit by a mosquito that had equine encephalitis. That went into my lovely brain and gave me encephalitis, viral encephalitis, that also dominoed into viral spinal meningitis. So I went from your typical kid that was out there doing and having all the fun in the world, sitting in a coma in a hospital with a halo on its head. They were preparing my parents to say, hey, she might not wake up. And I was in a coma for 7 days. When I did wake up, I had no sense of self, no Michelle, no nothing, no memories. I didn't know I was human. So all I knew that Earth was a place of complete overwhelm, pain, and not being able to communicate. When I smelled the barn, all of a sudden I had this feeling that I had never had before. And for the first time, I picked up my head and I wanted to know what was happening around me.
When she was 13 years old, a single mosquito bite sent her into a coma for 7 days. When Michelle Holling-Brooks woke up, she couldn't see, couldn't hear, couldn't walk, and had no idea she was even a human being. Every memory, every feeling, every sense of self had been completely erased. But something unexpected found her in the darkness. The smell of a barn and a horse named Schedule A. For the first time since waking up, she actually wanted to be here. Well, today, Michelle is a trauma-informed specialist, an intuitive healer who helps clients establish a secure connection to fully living, loving, and leading their authentic lives. Michelle is a contributing author within our latest anthology book, Sacred Bonds, heartfelt stories of mothers and the lives they shape, coming out just in time for Mother's Day 2026. You will absolutely love her chapter. In this episode, you'll discover what it means to truly heal, not just through medicine or willpower, but through the kind of connection that reaches you when nothing else can. I'm your host, David Trotter. Welcome to the Awaken Magazine podcast. Michelle, it's great to be with you today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to dive in.
I am very curious to hear from your first person perspective what was happening in your life at the age of 13. I've read about it, but I want to hear it straight from you. What was going on in your life and then what changed everything?
Yeah, 13 is definitely a pivotal year for anybody. That's that crazy year of going into middle school and trying to find yourself and breaking out from one way to the other. But for me, 13 was definitely a defining year because I happened to be in that place of trying to figure all that out, going into my 8th grade year of school. And I got bit by a mosquito that had equine encephalitis, and that went into my lovely brain and gave me encephalitis, viral encephalitis, that also dominoed into viral spinal meningitis at the same time. So two really serious viral infections, and that equaled a super unhappy brain. So I went from your typical gregarious kid that was out there doing and having all the fun in the world to having this kid that was now sitting in a coma in a hospital with a halo on its head. And they were preparing my parents to say, hey, she might not wake up. And if she does wake up, we don't know what she will be. So that was a pivotal moment.
How quickly did that happen from,
Yeah.
I get bit by mosquitoes, not here in Southern California, but you get bit by mosquitoes and it's kind of like,
Yeah.
whatever. Like, did you know it was a mosquito at the time? And how long did it take until you entered into a coma?
Yeah, so I've been told, because one of the things you'll find out about that coma is it wiped me clean. And I'll talk more about that in a second. But I've been told that it was a matter of like I was feeling sick the morning, and complaining of nausea and a headache. And by that evening, I could barely move and was throwing up, had a horrible, horrible fever, and it was happened to be on Halloween, and so they rushed me to urgent care, and from urgent care to the hospital. And from there, I just kept downgrading, and they were trying to figure out. At first, they didn't know what was wrong with me until they did a spinal tap, and they got that culture back, and they were able to figure it out. I happen to be horseback riding. We don't own horses. I rode at other places, but they had just had a group of horses that came back from a show in Florida. I live in Virginia at the time. I was in Northern Virginia, and there was an outbreak of horses in Florida that had equine eastern encephalitis. And what they then deduced was that a little hitchhiker must have hung out on that thing and went ahead and bit me, and then my body just couldn't work with it. And there I was. So slipped into a coma, and I was in a coma for 7 days.
My goodness, I can't even imagine as a parent. That just is just terrifying. So you said you were wiped clean. You have no memory prior to the age of 13?
Yeah, so when I was in that coma, a couple of things happened. My body got so dysregulated from the brain's stem, the meningitis swelling, and then the encephalitis, the lining of the brain swelling inward. So the both parts that should not have a lot of pressure on it had an immense amount of pressure. And so I ended up deaf from the fluid happening in my ears. And if you listen, you'll still hear a little bit of a where I've had a lot of speech pathology and a lot of different work. Took about 2 years to get my hearing back, and I was blind when I woke up from the coma. So it wasn't like darkness though; it was white blindness. So everything was like an overexposed photograph. Like the light actually like this was so incredibly painful. And I was also paralyzed from the middle of my back down. I couldn't move at all. But those are problematic things that happen to my physical body. The bigger thing that really was a kicker for me is that when I did wake up, I had no sense of self, no Michelle, no nothing, no memories. I didn't know I was human. I didn't know what a human was. I didn't understand or have any reference to anything. So all I knew that Earth was was a place of complete overwhelm, pain, and not being able to communicate or work with anything. That's the world I woke up in.
Could you speak?
No, I
Oh,
just made guttural sounds because I didn't know to speak. Yeah,
amazing. This is absolutely amazing. I know you've told this story a million times, but I'm hearing it for the first time. So it's like I'm right there at the bedside with you going, what is going on?
yeah.
How long did that take for you to heal into the person you are now? And what were some of the modalities and resources that they were utilizing?
Yeah, so I always like to pause right here and invite people to kind of one, it sounds weird. Put yourself in my shoes because you've been in my shoes. It's just not literal, but we've all had ways that we feel not seen, not heard, not understood. We all have ways that we couldn't move our body the way that we wanted to. So as I keep going with the story, realize that chances are, listeners, you have way more in common with my story. It's just a visceral literal thing compared to what I found over the years is the other. And so when I woke up, I was just this reactionary fight, fight, or freeze kind of a thing. And so at first, I tried to fight because that's just what our body does when it's overwhelmed and it's scared. And so I tried to fight. And of course, I had a halo, I had all these IVs in me and everything else like that. So they had to restrain me. And I didn't know. I didn't know that they were trying to help me. I didn't know that they were trying to communicate with me or anything else like that. I just knew that every time I tried to do something to try to help me or reach for something, it was shut down and I was immobilized. And so that taught me that Earth was all about being overrode, shut down, and you're all alone. There's nobody going to come and help you, and nobody's going to figure it out. And so that's kind of the cocoon that I nestled into, so to speak. And I spent a little bit in there. Eventually, I started to be able to track all the energy in that hospital. I could track, and I called them shadows because that's what they looked like. And it turns out those were humans. And I started to be able to recognize this is when people came in and this is what they wanted. And as long as I just did what they wanted to do, they would come, they would poke and prod me and move me, and then they would leave me alone. I figured out that I had a button that I could push, and one of these shadows would come and work with me. but I never really separated myself from anything because I didn't have anything telling me I was me and you were you. So as far as I was concerned, that whole hospital and everybody in it was me and I was them. And you can imagine how overwhelming and confusing that was. But there were three particular shadows that I really struggled over the what I now know are weeks. And again, I'm putting language back on something that at the time was just raw, working through it. But the three shadows I really struggled with because I could feel, and I started to track them from very far away, that they wanted something from me and they weren't getting it. And they were just desperately, it felt like something was reaching in and just pulling on me, just wanting me to do something. And I didn't know what it was. Those three shadows turned out to be my mom, my dad, and my sister because they wanted their daughter, they wanted their sister. They wanted the person that they knew to come back to them. And they were scared. They were overwhelmed. They were all the things. So I always say they get to tell their story. This is, I honor what it was like for that quote, Michelle, that was going through that. And it was really problematic for me. I didn't feel safe with them because they just wanted so much from me. And I didn't know how to give it to them, and it became a real issue for me because that was the energies I didn't feel safe with. Well, eventually, my body, I had figured out to eat when they wanted me to eat, and it had become organized enough about 3 months into it. They were like, well, medically, she can go home. And so they sent me home from the hospital to my house, but I was still blind. I was still deaf. I was still paralyzed from the middle of the back down. At this point, nobody knew if I was ever going to speak or talk or even interact with anything. And everything that I had synced myself to, imagine the organisms, the rhythms of the hospital, that's what I sunk, like was syncing up to. Now I was stuck with the three energies that were absolutely disorganized and I felt was an absolute threat. And I was going back into a space energetically that felt like that times 100, because now I was going into the room that they thought I would remember. And I was going into the rhythms of their day. And I was going into all these different spaces that they thought they could get me to be who they wanted me to be, who they needed me to be. And it wasn't happening. And so the battle of the wills kind of stuck in. And what it felt like was at that point, I developed a very certain idea of what Earth was, and it was just a torture chamber. And it wasn't anything else but that. So I learned how to just go away. And people have asked me now, well, where'd you go, Michelle? And I was like, at the time, I just went into the void. I just went into complete nothingness and numbness because I didn't know to look for anything else or to do anything else. But it was pretty problematic there for the first 6 months post coma because I didn't want to do anything. I had learned, I had grown 3 inches in the hospital. So I went in a little over 5'8" and I came out 6'1". So I had huge growing pains. Yeah. It's a, I think you're tall too. So like it's really painful to grow that much in that short amount of time. But my body needed the room to disperse all of that excess energy that was happening. And so I just learned to be basically the 6 foot snake that people could do hand over hand and move. And I stopped fighting and I stopped trying to even interact because I was deaf and blind. I didn't have to try to interact with them. And what they didn't realize though was I was talking a lot. I was just talking to them on different levels and I was interacting on different levels. I didn't know until a little bit later on that I wasn't verbally talking. I thought I was. Eventually, I found out that's not what I was doing. I was communicating with people on a different wavelength, but it's a little bit of a problematic. So that's my world at 13, and it stayed pretty dark until a moment of going out to the barn again. But I'll pause before I dive into that.
I don't
Um,
even know what to say. I mean, I just literally, I've never heard a story like this. This is just, I just feel so bad for you. My goodness. And to think that I'm talking to you, you're talking to me. You can see me, you can hear me. This is obviously massive change has gone into your life. So keep telling the story. Like, what happened?
yeah. So, like I said, I was willing to move, but not really. It was if you picked up my hand, I would push my wheelchair. But the minute you let go of my hand, I just dropped it. I didn't have any desire to do anything on my own. The energy of remember felt like a four-letter word to me. And if anybody came into that space with that that word, um, it was you better be ducking energetically because I was going to like send out a wave that was not super happy. Um, and eventually, though, my parents had been, and this was in 1990, so I kind of am like wowed by the fact that they figured out, hey, therapeutic riding maybe can be helpful for her. She liked horses before. Let me try this again. She's not doing anything. One of the PTs suggested it, like, hey, that might perk her back up. And so my dad was pretty much against it because he viewed that the barn was where I had gotten sick, but he happened to be active duty during Desert Storm. And so my mom kind of took advantage of that spot and reached out to the barn that I was riding at and said, hey, can we bring her back out? And they're like, we're not a therapeutic riding barn. We're a full-fledged, show barn and a jumper barn at that. So we've got high-strung, off-the-track thoroughbreds. We don't know if this is a good idea, but eventually everybody agreed, and even my dad. And so they packed me up. Off we went to the barn.
And by the way, can you hear at this point? I know you're sensing things energetically, but can you hear and discern voices at that point?
No, it's all underwater. So I had so much fluid stuck in my ear. Have you ever been underwater where you can hear garbledy, gurgly stuff, but if you try to figure out what somebody's actually saying, you can't do it? That's the familiar sense that I get. That's how I was hearing things. So if someone made a loud enough noise, I could feel that vibration and kind of turn towards it, but I didn't want to. So I didn't really turn towards anything. I just kept my head down. They had figured out at this point that as long as I kept super dark glasses, the kind with the like
Hmm.
little things and
Hmm.
the
Grandma
and a
glasses,
base
yeah.
yeah, and the
Yeah.
baseball cap on, that I didn't make guttural sounds of pain. So they were
Okay.
like, okay, well, we'll just keep her this way.
Another practical question, right? Are you feeding yourself? Are you going to the bathroom or showering by yourself? Or are you just completely having to be taken care of all the time?
I was at the point where I could feed myself. So if you sat me up and nothing pushed on me, I could stay upright. But if I
Hmm.
went to reach, like if because I could still move my arms, and if I went to do it, I had no core. Um, Imagine if you had no core, you're
Hmm.
like a little weeble wobble. So I would reach for something and then I would fall. So they would tie me to the chair that I was in, and they would tie me to other stuff. So I was pretty much stuck wherever anybody got me to. And that's just kind of where I stayed. I could move if I wanted to. Again, I didn't want to, with like an army crawl
Hmm.
and a 6 foot kind of snake behind it. But nothing, there was no draw in this
Hmm.
world for me to go towards
Hmm.
until this day. And so I don't know if you know it, but scent is on a different neural network than memory. And so it taps in like a back door into your memory field, um, and allowing that in there. Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. And it's bringing that in from that other side. When I smelled the barn, because they opened the door and I could smell it, all of a sudden I had this feeling that I had never had before, and that was post-coma, was a familiarity. I remembered that smell. And so I wanted to know what it was. And for the first time, I picked up my head and I wanted to know what was happening around me. And when they picked me up to put me in the wheelchair, I didn't fight it. And I actually was like, "Ooh, okay, Where are we going? I didn't know. And they wheeled me around the corner into this big, I don't know if you've ever been in a lot of like show barns, but there's big center aisle barns with stalls on the sides. And this one happened to have the Dutch doors. So the one door was open, horses could put their heads out.
Hmm.
Um, and they're dark. So it was shadowy, which meant I could see more with my literal eyes. But I was still seeing at this point mostly through my empathetic and intuitive senses. And so 4 stalls down on the left, David, there was this yellow sparkling highlighter that was just gorgeous, the most beautiful thing I had ever seen, just emanating this light. And it turns out that it was a dark bay thoroughbred named Schedule A. But to me, he was so beautiful. And I knew that being. I knew, and that's the first being I ever knew post coma. I picked up my hands for the first time, wheeled myself down to the stall, whacked into the stall door, should have scared an off the track thoroughbred. It didn't. He reached his head up and over, tucked in, pulled me into the barn door, and I reached up for the first time I was willing to touch, to reach, to open. And I just stayed like that. Like I buried my head into Schedule. He's so beautiful. Um, just making room for him to come on in. And he just stood with me and he hugged me and he was with me. And it was the first touch that I wanted to reciprocate. I wanted to receive it and I wanted to give. And that was the moment I was like, I'll give this earth thing a try if this being is in it. And my parents luckily didn't get too offended by that. And they saw it as the carrot that it could be, which was, oh, she wants this horse, so therefore let's use the horse. And Schedule and I had a very different conversation than we did with what the rest of the world thought we were having. He was helping me find me again. He was helping me find my way back. He was helping me find my way into my body. And yes, from riding him 3 to 4 days a week, I brought back, it took about a year and a half. But by the time winter rolled around for as a freshman in high school, I was trying out for the basketball team and off and quote running, so to speak. It did take another year for the ears and the eyesight to completely come back online with my 5 senses, but the whole time I was making up the difference with the intuitive senses. And that was a whole situation, but that's a whole nother topic. So yeah, what brought me back was a horse and a beautiful horse named Schedule A.
My goodness. And so the feeling from I think you said your chest down,
Hmm.
your waist down, was that a gradual process of that coming back online or instantaneous, or how did that play out for you?
Yeah, so what they did is they figured out that obviously I was willing to do things I was fighting and not willing to do anywhere else. And so they, again, talked to the owner of the barn and the instructor, and they dusted off that good old Western saddle that every English barn has. And they did the same thing that they did in the wheelchairs, not safe, do not do this at all, but they tied me to the saddle so that if I did fall, I didn't go very far. Don't, like, for real, don't do that. Um, it's not safe. But luckily, Schedule would just wait. I'd start to slip and he'd stop. And he'd wait for someone to kind of shove me back up there. Eventually, because I didn't want to get off, and if I fell to the side too many times, they would just like slide me down to be like, okay, she's tired. I started to want to engage. And so I was basically shining a flashlight on the parts of my nervous system that were damaged, so to speak. And the rhythmic movement of the horse connected with me wanting to be there. I think this is the piece that I really want to share is we heal in connection. It wasn't just a random I'm sitting on a horse and they're moving my body mechanically. It was I wanted to be with Schedule and Schedule wanted to attune to me, and that is what I believe allowed my nervous system to heal to the point where after 6 months I was using a walker. 6 months after that I was barely in braces. And then after that, boom, here we go. And off to the races it is. And so, yes, did he help me move my body? Absolutely. But the relationship, the connection I had with him, that's what facilitated that deep healing on
Hmm.
a physical level.
So I am mildly aware of equine therapy. I have ridden horses. I've been around horses, this much. I don't have that same sense of awareness or connection that you are describing. For someone who is like me, who goes, what is that like? Like, help me understand what you're talking about. This is a connection at what level?
Yeah, at a soul level. Um, think of, have you ever had an animal in your life that you just like could think about from way far away and you knew, like you could tell, like there was like this thread between you and you could feel that tug. Have you had that experience with an
Yes, yes.
animal? Yeah.
Mhm.
And when you felt that, if you were struggling, would they know it?
I don't know. Actually, the dog that my partner Mandy had when we
Mm-hmm.
connected several years ago, uh, he knows that. He knows that about any of us.
Yeah,
um I don't have as much of a connection with him, probably because it was like her
her
dog,
dog.
right,
Hmm.
before we had a relationship. But I had a dog for 13 years or so, and I just was devastated when that dog passed away. Actually, the dog came into a mediumship session in like a year ago by name. Like the medium knew the name of the dog, which was just shocking to me, right? So I don't know. I've had some sort of connection. Yes. So I'm going to say
Yeah.
yes. I get this.
Yes. And so it is that connection, that if you don't have your mind getting in the way. So this is the thing that I would say gave me a quote leg up. There was no mind. There was no human mind telling me what an animal is and isn't. There was no human mind telling me how I should talk or how I shouldn't talk to all the different beings. All the conditioning that said this is what a human is and this is what a human isn't was wiped away. And so when I started getting that conditioning, I was like, that's not true because it wasn't true. Let me give you a quick little insight. So we at this point, I was kind of mobile. I had braces, like the walking braces. And I had a friend who lived next door, and she was the friend that I went to because she was like next door. So it was easy to get me to, and the dad was also in the military. So there was that connection, and piece in there. And I was over sitting at their house. We were sitting in the breakfast nook. We had just had a quote sleepover, and I was sitting there eating my Cheerios, and they had a family cat, and the cat threw up. And I thought I heard the mom say out loud, why did the cat just throw up? And I heard the cat answer because of the divorce. And so I'm a parent at this point. I don't know what any of these words. I'm like a baby. I'm like a year old. All I do is parent. You've been around kids. You had kids. Kids say the darndest thing because they just parrot back. They don't know what it means. So I am eating my Cheerios and I just say mid scoop because of the divorce. Well, a bomb went off in that poor little breakfast nook. The dad went like, whoa, knocked his thing down. The mom dropped what she was doing. This friend elbowed me, which meant I fell over. And all of this happened in 2.5 seconds. And I was like, what? That's what the cat said. And then I got it, David. I got it. They couldn't hear it. They didn't hear the cat say because of the divorce. I didn't hear the mom say the question, why did the cat just throw up? None of what I was communicating with was happening around them. And I was like, oh, I'm in trouble because I don't know the difference between what I'm connecting with here and what I'm connecting with there. And that's what was happening with schedule. So we were connecting in all these beautiful ways, but not in ways that the people around us could see or interact or to work with. So it was problematic.
Yeah. My goodness. My goodness. Uh, fast forward just for the sake of time because
Yeah.
you have just such an extraordinary story. I know at the age of 23, right, another 10 years later, you experienced another tremendous season of transformation, and you begin to include some of this in your chapter in Sacred Bonds, which we'll get to in just a moment. But talk to me about the age of 23, just briefly. What was going on in your life at that time?
Yeah, so from that moment with the cat, I pretty much started to live in two different worlds. The world I was in at the barn, and then the world that I was in the human world. And the horses taught me a lesson that said, hey, if you fight the human world, it usually doesn't work out very well. So you need to just give in, give them what they want, and then they'll leave you alone. They'll put you back out in the field. The more you fight them, the more problematic it's going to be, because that was their experience as a horse in a lesson program. And that was my experience as a teenager going back into high school after having such a huge illness and being the weird kid in a wheelchair for a little bit and then eventually not in a wheelchair. High school kids don't do too well with that. So I entered what I called in between that 10-year gap, the years of abuse. I abused myself. Think of it, I'm a Blake scream. No, I don't know what I don't know. So if somebody comes up to me and says, Michelle, this is who you are, okay, and this is who I need you to be, to not let it be ridiculed. So it was a really not okay 10-year period. And then I just got to the point at 23 where I was just done. I had schedule passed away, and that was my anchor. And I was really at this place. A relationship that I thought was going to go the distance had just ended, and I just was like, this is just pain. I see no reason to stay in this torture chamber. And so I did. I tried to end it all, took a handful of pills, and this is when another animal, Baron, saved me. And he licked into my mouth after I had passed out on the basement floor of our basement apartment, and triggered a vomit response. And so I woke up in my own puke, and he was showing me a vision. And in that vision, I saw this beautiful being of light, very similar to what I saw when I was looking at Schedule the first time. And he said to me, why don't you love her the way I do? He's like, this is who you are. And I know animals don't lie. So I've had to like stop and be like, that's not her. And he's like, this is you. And I didn't know that part of me. I didn't know who it was, but I wanted to know who she was. And so as I took a shower and pulled the little bits of pills out of my hair, and I wiped down that mirror and I looked at it, and just hollow eyes were looking back at me. And I made myself a promise. I said, I don't know where you are. I don't know who you are, but I'm going to find you. And I was talking to that soul that was within me. And so that was the awakening moment. And then after that moment comes the work, as I'm sure you have experienced in your own journey, and from talking to other guests, is it's that after that spiritual awakening moment that's when the troubles and the trials and the lion, tigers, and bears, oh my, kind of come in, and we really have to roll up our sleeves and say, I am committed to finding her. And so that's when I dove into Schedule. Helped me create a tether back to earth. And he helped my physical body heal, and he kept my heart on just enough. It woke up just enough. That journey at 23 and forward, and especially into motherhood, got me to be to where I actually wanted to be in earth. And those are two very different things, because I just kind of endured it. After 23, I actually wanted to figure out how to show up, and not just show up, but show up as that light, as that soul. And with the love that Baron said, why don't you love her the way I do? I didn't have an answer for that. And that's what I wanted to go find. So it dove me into that seeker's journey where somatic work, trauma work, shamanic work, parts work, wisdom traditions, you name it, I was showing up in that classroom or finding a book on it to try to piecemeal this thing back together.
Amazing. Amazing. Um, you have shared a chapter with us in the book Sacred Bonds, Heartfelt Stories of Mothers and the Lives They Shape. And this book will be coming out Mother's Day 2026. And so I'm so honored to have you share this story. It's such a beautiful. You're such a great writer, and I love what you did because those who participated in the book had the opportunity to share. You know, right? You can share anything, and you shared just this snapshot in time, this meditation that you have when you're holding your daughter, and this occurred about 17 years ago, and you talk about feeling like you were, quote unquote, about to be asked to take a universal exam for a class that I didn't sign up for and that I was going to fail miserably. And I do know that feeling of having kids. It just feels like, oh man, I thought this was going to be fun to have a kid. This feels just brutal. I mean, it
Yeah.
is fun, but it is a lot of work. Um, what did you learn about nurturing your daughter and nurturing yourself in those early days of motherhood? And of course, I want people to get the book because I want them to read that chapter of you describing this meditation, this experience, this visualization that you had. But talk to me about this concept of nurturing. Why is that so important to you? How did you learn to nurture her? How did you learn to nurture yourself?
Yeah, that was my fear. Like I knew how to survive. I knew how to endure. I even knew how to create because I once I kind of plugged back into life, I became, quote, very successful. You know, I was diving into the work of equine partnered psychotherapy and working my way up the ranks of that to being one of the top in the world in that field. I was like a bit of a machine, and I was just ticking through things, learning as much as I could and doing. But I wouldn't say that I nurtured life. I was trying to figure it out. I was trying to like hack it and understand it. And I was really on that. Okay, I'm still in Earth School. I could have died multiple times by now. I'm here. I might as well help get as many people out of the dumpster fire as possible. That's not really nurturing. That's I was really good rescuer. You know, I was good at getting in there, pulling people out of fires and setting them on their way. Um, my fear was when I had a pregnancy that was actually holding because I was told that my body, because of all of the other past traumas and illnesses, wouldn't be able to, they deemed it a hostile wound environment. And so I didn't really think that I would actually get a kid to full term, and that I actually couldn't get pregnant. And then voila, here I was. And it was holding, and that was scary unto itself. And then there she was in my arms, and that was even scarier because I'm like, oh no, like this little being is now asking me to, like, I keep looking at your plants behind you, like, you have to take care of me. I can't go out and get my own water. I can't go out and get the sunlight that I need you to nurture me. And I didn't know how to do that because I wasn't actually doing it. So what motherhood became was this beautiful opportunity for me to nurture myself, to learn how to nurture her, allow her to nurture her life. And when I say nurture, I mean like be with, open to, all of it. The beautiful moments, the messy moments, the sad moments, the angry moments, the disappointing moments. Like, how can we actually be there? And that's what our soul wants us to do. It wants us to actually be in life. For the longest time, up until motherhood, I really thought it was about stepping up the stepping stone, so to speak. Like I'm working my way back. I had gone way into like Buddhism, Taoism, and other stuff, and then it's like, oh, it is about enlightenment. And ironically, the name of the book I just put out. And you know, this is about me transcending this dense shadow thing that is the human being. Eventually, spirit got hold of me and it was like, Michelle, why would you be in a body if you weren't supposed to be in the body? And I and I was like, hold please. I've got an answer for you, but just give me a moment. And I thought about it and I thought about it. I was like, that's okay, I'm listening. What else do you got, spirit? And that's when I started to wake up to nurturing. And honestly, I don't think I would have done it if I didn't have a child. If I didn't have something that responsibility on that level, if I would have opened to this energy of nurturing. And that's the archetypal healing gift, I think, that comes through any type of mother, whether that's a biological, adopted bonus, or a mom to fur babies or plants or to a business. That same month of having her, I gave birth to Unbridled Change. It's just like once that energy woke up in me, I wanted to give life. I wanted
Hmm.
to let my life help channel life. Um, Something I would have never told you was a part of me until that journey.
Hmm. What was the difference that shifted in the nurturing of a child versus nurturing of an animal? Because you obviously had this deep connection with animals and this, love for them. What was it about a child that shifted that nurturing?
That's a great question because kind of specialized in working with abused and neglected animals and helping them find themselves again. So you could say to me, Michelle, you were already mothering, you were already nurturing. It didn't click to me that way. It was very much more of I was coming in as a facilitator, as somebody there to hold space. And um, I was keeping myself ever so slightly to the side, um, ever so slightly in almost a clinical kind of space. And what I share in that chapter, don't want to give it away, is like, Spirit asked me to kind of challenge that, to look at what was that buffer about? What was that film about? And did I need it anymore? I needed it back then, back in that early, that what I call the years of abuse. It was absolutely necessary and needed to be in there. But did it need to be in there now? And what would that look like? And how much relationship could I have if I would let down that heart wall and start to allow myself to be in a true relating with another being. And that's what motherhood kind of challenged me because I didn't want to be clinical with her. I didn't want to just check the boxes and get her from point A to point B. Um, I wanted to connect with her from a heart
Hmm.
to heart.
Hmm.
And honestly, before that, I didn't have an open heart. It had a pretty good little armor around it. So even though I had this beautiful connection with the animals and the plant and stone beans, it was just ever so slightly separated because after schedule died, I didn't want to do that again. It
Hmm.
hurt. It hurt too bad.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. You include a prayer in your chapter, and I'll read it. It says, "Please help to remember I am my own mother. I have the power to nurture within. Help me remember that I can always ask for Spirit's help, and the same golden thread will continue to connect me with the parts of me that are lost. Help me remember that this medicine is always within me. And if I forget, that my body remembers the way there too. Help me continue to trust in my body's wisdom to guide me in, through, and connect with my true self." I'm curious about that term, my body's wisdom. What is the wisdom of the body, and um, how can it guide us in these moments when we're feeling overwhelmed or in the midst of uncertainty?
Yeah, the body's wisdom was kind of one of the last wisdoms I woke up to because I found my body incredibly problematic. I viewed that it abandoned me. I viewed that it had made my life a living heck. It was what tethered me to this world. I didn't really like it. So I never saw how brilliant it was that it healed that it figured its way back, that it survived, and it kept working for me and being this beautiful sanctuary for me. I couldn't see that. I couldn't connect with that. And eventually, through the process of holding life and giving life and bringing that in, I started to recognize that the body was moving me in a way that was in connection. It was my mind that was pulling me out of it. It was my mind that would backpedal and disconnect myself and write a story and put it over top of it. My body always had the attuned answer to move in, to lovingly hold a boundary, to it knew what it wanted to do. It was all the conditioning that was keeping me from being able to connect to that. So once I saw that, that's what I wanted that prayer to remind me of, is like, hey, my body knows where to go, even if my mind says, I don't know how to do this because I've never had it. I don't remember mother. I don't have, like, we had a very problematic relationship with the mother because the Michelle that woke up, she viewed was the Michelle that killed her child, and so that was a problem. And so this idea of a mother wound was really present in me. And I just didn't think I could be that for somebody because of so much history. But my body, it knew something different. And that's what, when we go on a healing journey, we reconnect these pieces of us back to ourselves. We quiet the mind, the protective mind, just enough that the body, the soul, the heart, it comes forward and it gives us the answer. Like, here is the way to move. Here's the way to think. Here's the way to approach. Here's the way to be. It's very practical, actually. It's right there waiting for us. The trick is to befriend the mind to the point where it steps back and it trusts these other types of wisdom that is problematic to our mind. It doesn't think it's real, but it is.
Hmm. So you mentioned that just soon after having your first child, you started a nonprofit, Unbridled
Yeah.
Change. So I'm curious, what is Unbridled Change? What do you do? How do you help people?
Yeah, so in 2008, that's when Unbridled Change was born, and that's when my daughter was born too, my first daughter. And yeah, it was, the main focus at the time was equine partnered, is what I call it, psychotherapy. So eventually on this healing journey, while I loved healing the body, and I do work with body work and energy work and helping the body heal, I really realized that the body again knows how to heal itself. It's the mind that gets in the way between the two. And so at first I felt very comfortable coming through the doorway of the mind. Now Unbridled Change has grown to come through multiple doorways. But in the beginning, the only one I wanted to show people because of the cat experience was this beautiful science shield of the psychotherapy side. And so that was the original intent. And then teaching and learning and helping people kind of on the coaching side was there as well. Eventually, fast forward now 17 years, and Unbridled Change has expanded to, yes, it will always have an equine component because they are my first teachers and how to bridge that gap. But then that bridge of connection to that heart space is really something that I started to really develop and to work with. And that's where the energy work, coaching, and really spiritual transformation and direction really came forward of bringing that in. Plus, the horse is giving me a little nudge to get out there and support more people on that journey that might not have that same affiliation to horses, but they can have that to themselves. So I
Mhm.
call them my first teachers, my mentors, but eventually they kicked me out of the nest, so to speak, and asked me to
It's out of
go.
the
But that's,
barn.
yeah, they kicked me out of the barn and onto the internet, onto this barn, onto this stage, and yeah, so that's what Unbridled Change does. Is it's our mission as a nonprofit is to help support as many people on their healing journey as possible, so that they can fully live, love, and lead their authentic life. So that's what we're up to.
Who are the types of people that you work with the most? When they come to you, what are the challenges that they're facing?
Yeah, so usually two different doors. One is that emotional mental world. It's feeling that separation of that heart wall. feeling a sense of numbness that life's experiences, usually trauma background, have separated them out from that. That could be through, like on the equine side, we work mainly with kids in the foster care system. Then we also work with Recovery Corps and a couple other veterans and programs like that, which are just near and dear to my heart.
And that's
Um,
at your actual facility there in
yeah,
Virginia.
yep.
Okay.
And we do workshops every once in a while, or we open it up and anybody can come on in and join us. And then I also do travel. So I'll go to other places if people have like a group that they want me to train or to work with or to do a topic on. I can do that too. But on the this side, the coaching kind of spiritual transformation side, typically it used to be physical. So the physical body, people struggling with how trauma is manifesting in their body, and how they are done everything, been there, done that. They have the good integrative doc, they've done everything, and they're coming in and they're like, I've hit a wall and I've been given your name. And I don't quite know what you can do. I'm like, well, great, let's start talking to your body because that was my first language. English is, as far as I'm concerned, the second one. My first language is the language of energy, the language of body, somatics, and seeing and working with it that way. So that's the main part over there. What I love to say though is now people are starting to find me before they feel like the wheels are falling off and they're at their last stop. I used to be the last stop, and now I'm starting to bump up into where I think just collectively we're starting to wake up to this idea that holistic health is more than mind over matter. That was a very little version of what holistic health is. And we're finally figuring out, oh, it had three words in it: mind, body, and spirit. And so, what is this spirit thing? And why is it a part of this trifecta? And with the law of three, what does that do? And that's really exciting to me because that's the part about fully living. As I had healed my body. Okay, great. I was still just surviving. I started to work on my mind after Baron helped wake me up and bring me back in and bridge that gap. But I was missing something. You can hear it in my voice, it's getting all wobbly. That's what I was missing, my real voice, who I was in my heart and my soul, not who I was from my trauma, not who I was from my past, but who am I now? That's what I think we all want to feel. That's what we want to share. That's what we want to see in somebody else. And when we can do that, that's the power that will heal.
Hmm. Amazing. I'm just envisioning these Zoom calls of coaching sessions with like a horse over the shoulder and like his head is like right there nestled on your shoulder. That's
Well,
like,
there's
that's,
kind of one right there right now. So maybe maybe I think you said you're starting to learn to channel. So you probably are picking up. There's actually quite a few of them back there. They are a
I'm
part of my
thinking though,
team.
here's the donation if you want just Michelle. If you want Michelle and a horse, it's an upgrade. Okay. And there's a full, like, that would be awesome. Yes, that would be so great. Um, you utilize a framework to help people that you call bridges of connection.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about this. What does this entail?
Yeah, so when I love frameworks, and it's probably because I had no framework and I was so loosey-goosey all over the place and I was trying to make sense of this crazy thing called Earth School. But I love a good framework so that I can have it and then I can let go of it. But the way the bridge of connection works is really based off of how our nervous system originally works. You have kiddos, right?
Hmm.
Uh, how would that kiddo be able, what's the condition for one of your kids to be able to show up just as they are, like when they were littler, to their like their glory, to like just be whoever they want to be? Like, what would be some of those conditions that would need to be present in that room?
Well, I would probably have to be emotionally regulated. Like I
Yeah.
would have to be then, like settled,
Hmm.
present, not thinking about my to-do list,
Yeah.
um, and empathy, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm thinking
Yeah.
about those three things.
Yeah. I love it. Perfect. So he'd have to be able to predict, right? You have sons, right? No,
One son, one daughter.
one son
Mhm.
or daughter. So either one coming into that room, they'd have to be able to predict that you're going to be present, You're going to have empathy for them, meaning you're not just going to like judge them, hands on hip, wag their finger if they show up and they're like, I want to do a twirl as I come into the room, or whatever the heck it is, or they show up with all their favorite things, 5 layers to go to their friend's house, and you're like, that's amazing. You're like, just thinking of my daughter, solitaire and all that stuff. They have to be able to know that something is going to meet them in that space that's caring, curious, empathetic, and genuinely, even if you're like, that's the most beautiful outfit in the world, and yet, can we do a little editing? It's not going to shame them in that process. They will walk into that room every time connected to their true voice. Every time. Now, what gets them not to do it when that's not there, when they can't predict what's going to meet them in that room. Therefore, they don't know how to show up in a way that's going to get connection. They don't know if it's going to be curious or if it's going to be judging, if it's going to be this or it's going to be that. Now, as a parent, I want every parent to step back a second because we all miss this mark. And actually, that's amazing because if we circle back around and do repair work, we're good. We're golden. It's
I'm just going
actually
to
the
say, in my mid 20s, I did not know how to do what you're
yeah,
just
that's
describing.
that's what I said. Like a hot second, let's get everybody off the ledge, and get people back. Forgiveness. I drew a card before from my new deck, and it was the compassion card, like to have compassion for ourselves, and then the forgiveness card. So these are two really key energies that I'm talking about here. But so the bridge is this. If we can set up that scenario within us to be that parent in that room, that attuned, empathetic, curious parent, that of course is going to help guide and give boundaries and healthy feedback and heads up. It's not going to let all ballers roll because that won't feel safe to that kid either. It'll eventually not feel that there's something holding it. It's so, can we set up a trustworthy connection to ourselves? Meaning, are we going to show up with respect, honoring, and loving ourselves? That's a second pillar. And are we willing to hear a yes, no, and maybe? You've heard me talk about spirit. I just don't say to spirit yes right away. I'm like, hold on. I push back and forth and I have questions with it. And I'm like, I want to walk around this thing and kick its tires for a little bit. And spirit's like, yeah, sure. No worries. Let me know. I'm just here. I'll answer your questions. It doesn't judge me. That's another pillar of connection. Like, can we kind of go back and forth with ourselves and talk to ourselves? And when we do that, we can actually connect because we're actually connecting to somebody real, right? They're not connecting to a fake version of themselves to please somebody. They're not connecting to a version that they think they have to not get in trouble. They're showing up in that room and doing that little twirl because they feel guided to walk in that room and do a twirl and be like, hello, here I am. And that's what happens. And when that happens, we get that fifth pillar, which is our purpose and our why, which is to bring balance and healing and love and joyful service to each other in that space. So you get a smile by watching your kiddo be them, and they get a smile by watching you find joy in them. And it just exponentially, heightens and supports each other. So that's the bridge of connection. That's what it is. And it doesn't have to be perfect, just like we don't have to be perfect. As long as we figure out that one of those is rattling, oh, you know what? I just showed up for myself really judgy, really harsh. Let me go back. Let me bring a little bit of compassion, a little bit of love. Then we're there. We're in that space. We're back to connecting to our heart space. That's what, unfortunately, attachment wounds, trauma, different experiences in life, that's what rips us like an ocean, separates us out from that. And that's why I call it a bridge because it doesn't have to be perfect. It can grow with us and we can overcome really big divides within ourselves. We can find a way back from it. I found a way back from not even knowing who Michelle was. In fact, if you had said that word Michelle to me back in the day, it was not a pretty picture. I would get really disheartened. I didn't like her. I didn't like anything to do with it. And now I can find that light that's held within that name and hold it because it's not all of who I am. It's just a part of me.
Hmm.
And who is that soul? Yeah.
Beautiful. You have held up a couple of the cards from your brand new deck called the Sacred Witness Oracle deck, and there's an accompanying guidebook. And I know both of those things go along with your book called Trauma Informed Enlightenment: Awakening to the Healing Power of the Sacred Witness. So tell me for a moment, and of course we'll link to the book, the deck, and the guidebook. Who is the book for? Who would it benefit? Who's the deck for? Share about it.
Thank you. The book is like having me in a box. Actually, the whole suite together is like sitting down and working with me for, 6 months to a year, and walking through that bridge of connection of befriending the body and the seeing the body differently, and starting to wake up to what does it mean to read the body, as a witness and as a partner. Befriending the mind. The ego is not the problem, the protectiveness of it. That's the part. I call it the lone wolf protector. It needs to come in from being out there on its own for so long. And then we can open to the heart. And in the heart space, we can meet those parts of us that have had the thumbprint of past experiences that feel lost, separated, overwhelmed, that trance of unworthiness. We can heal that. And ultimately, it leads you in that pathway to your soul, to who you are, and the beautiful gifts that you came here to share and to give. And so, this whole system, from the book or the deck and the guidebook, however somebody wants to work with it, is really designed to be this beautiful soul companion, for somebody on that healing journey who wants to awaken to who they truly are through that power of what I call the sacred witness. And it's not about getting outside of the body, because that's what I did for the first half of my healing journey. It's kind of 10-year cycles, so they're kind of funny until, another awakening that, like I said, spirit got hold of me and was like, Michelle, you were disembodying. You got to embody. And I was like, oh, what's that?
Mm.
And bringing myself back into that space.
Mhm.
So it's a step-by-step roadmap. It has somatic-based practicing in it. It's all trauma informed. So it's a real grounded, rooted spirituality that ultimately opens you up to, being able to channel and connect and be a part of you, because you have this wisdom already within you,
Mhm.
and, you can funnel it through somebody else, but ultimately, I want you to be able to read for yourself. I'll do an intuitive reading, but I like to call it a jumper cable, to you, because it, you have that capacity, and I want to help people wake that up and have that. So
Mhm.
that's my big, like, real passion right now, is to help people wake up that intuitive side of them and
Mm.
marry those two, bring that into their daily life.
Do you have the book or deck where we can
Oh,
see it real quick?
yeah. So
I
this
just
is
want to
trauma
get the visual.
informed
Yes.
enlightenment.
Beautiful cover.
Um,
So beautiful.
Isn't that gorgeous? And see the
Mhm.
bridge?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
And then, this is the guidebook. It's a full size guidebook, David. It's not like a little, like,
Oh my gosh.
oh,
With
on
that
this.
8-point print that I can barely read in dimly
No, look at
lit
that.
light, like, yeah, look at that. That's like a
Yeah,
that's like a middle-aged person's deck
yeah.
guidebook.
This is like a real, and it's a book. It's a workbook, because you can get the quick when this card comes forward. This is like death of the false self. Look at that. Look at the card reading we've got going on here today. Compassion, forgiveness, and then we can have the death of the false self. Yeah, so like it says, here's the one that most people think of, this little paragraph right here. Like, when this card comes forward, it's a time to acknowledge an old way of being. But then it has a whole guided somatic reflection and practices and shadow work, how to go deeper, and it references you back to here, so you can go to the practice and
Beautiful.
get back in here. So it's a whole
Beautiful.
system that you can go as deep, or you can do a quick thing and just work with the card and the one word. You
Yeah.
can, it's all there for you.
And what's the best place for people to find the book, the deck, the guidebook? What's the best place?
It's going to be on probably my website as the main hub, and then they can get tons of other free resources and dive in and support. Unbridledchange.org, org, because it is a nonprofit. You can link from there. I'll also have, once the Sacred Bonds is out, I'll have a link there as well. So people will be able to find that book as well from my website and your website. all over the place, and all the other beautiful contributing authors that are in there as well. Yeah, so that's probably the best like hub or social media of your choice. I've got YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the good stuff.
And of course, at unbridledchange.org, they can book a session with you to work with you directly as well.
Yeah. So at this point, I have a wait list for
Okay.
private sessions. I
Okay.
know.
All right. They can dive into
And
courses that you have.
they
Yeah,
have got on-demand courses, and I've got always ongoing and enrolling small groups. So like right now, I'm running a small group of like 10 people, and we're running through how to do Eden energy exercises. And so they get a teaching from a course, and then they dive in. They meet with me once a week, and I help feel into what's going on with them with that exercise and fine tune it. So there's lots of ways to get into from little groups to big groups, semi-private kind of stuff. But yeah, there's a way.
Michelle, you are amazing. My goodness, I am so thankful that you are here on this earth with us and helping so many people and helping animals and helping all the things. So, thank you so much for being with us today. Thanks for what you're doing to help everyone. Really appreciate it.
Oh, well, I'm really grateful. And to you, thank you for putting this beautiful community together and offering from the books to the magazines to the imprint magazines. I mean, you are just helping spread the light and the love so much. So thank you to you and to your partner, Mindy, for all and your amazing crew for everything you guys are doing.
All right. All right. So, pick up the book. Trauma Informed Enlightenment. Pick up the deck, Sacred Witness Oracle deck and guidebook. And of course, you'll be able to pick up Sacred Bonds coming out Mother's Day 2026. So, all right, Michelle, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.